Hey YouTube, how is it going? I hope all is well. Today, we're going to go through a bunch of little things here. We're going to put together a show for you. We're going to watch me go from zero to hero like that. I wish, anyway. So, what are we going to look at today? Not just my hands. I trust you that. Trust me on that. What we're going to do is see a bunch of segments of video here. I'm going to kind of talk over it. We're going to have some background music. We're going to talk a little bit. We'll just kind of go through the whole build process. We're going to go from this to something else in short order. So let's get on with the show. Never mind the music. Just get ready. All right, everybody, let's settle in. So first and foremost, let's just kind of get through this first little bit here. There's some actual audio to it, so, you know. Well, here goes nothing as we basically burn away on our thing here. It for you doesn't look like much, just maybe like a blue glowing light, but we are burning up some faceplates. Yay. Yeah, you get it. So, and next. Alright, here we are coming on to the last few little holes there. We should be getting all the controls cut out here in just a moment. And then we'll actually cut the plates themselves. But provided everything goes my way, this will be done in just a few moments and it'll look perfect. That's the plan. So, pretty pleased. Anyway, we'll see it in just a moment. Oh yes. Oh yes. And then just like that, you end up with a couple of face plates. And I got it right on the first try. You don't understand. When you fuck one of these things up, it is so bothersome. Especially since these sheets cost about 30 bucks a pop. 30 bucks a pop, and you're lucky if you can get 4 of them out of it. The reason I say you're lucky if you can get 4, by 4 I mean literally 2 amps worth of stuff. But invariably, you almost always biff one of them. I got lucky. I did not biff either of these. They are correct. They fit very well. You can't really see. I put marks on the back, whatever. We know that it's fitting. So yeah, quite smitten with that. So onward and upward. Oh yeah, and here we go. So, yes, I actually do hand drill my chassis. I do order them from a company that bends the box up for me to my, specs or whatever, which is pretty standard to be honest. But what I do is I pay him to put the IEC socket in the back, and I also have him put the chassis like bolt things for me, the inserts, or the what do they call those things? Nutserts. That's the word I was looking for. It's easier to have him do it. I think he charges $10, and it certainly costs me more than $10 a time to do it. So I just have him do it, because why not? So, yep, there we go. Did some soft setting to make sure everything's going to fit. Looks great. There we go. That's what it looks like when we're done. All right, so we're going to keep on cruising here. So this is the part that's probably the most rewarding, I guess, for me, is when you're stuffing it full of all the parts, because then you know, like, for sure that you drilled everything nice and straight. It all fits like it's supposed to. It goes in like it's supposed to. All that fun stuff, right? And to be honest, it starts to look like a completed amp anyway. So this is my favorite part, even though it's the biggest pain in the butt, to be honest. So careful not to scratch up your chassis when you're putting those things in there. It's kind of difficult at first until you get a couple of the screws kind of tightened up. And you'll actually see I did use a square to make sure that it was nice and square to the chassis as well, because that is importante. Muy importante. And same here. Just kind of going through the steps. And you see I did put out the straight edge there to make sure I did my work right. Yay. Awesome possum. There we go. On to the next. So here we're just going to work on the turret board a little bit more. We're going to make sure that we got that all nice and straight and put in there proper. I did drill the holes nice and cleanly, so it fit just like a glove. Like a glove. And here we go. Now we're actually going to start stuffing the turrets. I'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but I can tell you right now, this is the most turrets I've ever put in a turret board, and I had to literally solder something to each and every single one of them. Probably won't be doing that again, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. Oh yeah, there we go. Nice fit. And then I just do some wire cleanup, trying to make sure everything is all purty-like. And then I start going through the zip ties. You're going to burn through a butt ton of zip ties, so buy more than you think you need. Even a simple build like this, I tend to burn through about 25 of them or more. I always end up having, I'll soft set everything kind of where I want it. And then things will change, and I'll have to cut half of them out, and then I replace them, and then I'll add more, and then, you find this other wire that you needed to add in there, yada, yada, et cetera, and next thing you know, you're just doing it again anyway. So here we are, just doing some more work, getting like the center tap grounding points and, the safety ground and all that stuff put in, and we're also going to get going on wiring up the heaters and all the other fun stuff, secondaries, etc. So this is probably the least fun part for me. I just don't like doing the heater wires. I don't know what it is. I'm really particular about it, and it's really difficult to make them look good, especially with the wire I use, because it's pretty stout wire. So to make it run straight is kind of difficult. And then, of course, to make it like contiguous or look like one continuous run down the middle is also kind of a pain in the butt too. But, you do what you can. It's a real show. We just started. So here we are putting in the impedance selector. Make sure you get that one right, because getting it out and then fixing anything that you get wrong is going to be a pain in the butt. So make sure you do it right. So you can see there I was flattening out the rods there that I'm using. I'm using Romex from now on for the speaker jacks, just FYI. So there's that, and still keeping on moving here. So here we are actually wiring in all the internal gut stuff, or just kind of cleaning stuff up and make sure everything's going to fit. We're putting on face plates. Oh, that's sexy, isn't it? Yeah, and then we peel out the... So I use this stuff, it's called like super glue tape. It's basically just super sticky tape that's really, really thin. Works really well for attaching the faceplate to the chassis. I find that it is pretty much permanent. So don't mess it up. Once you get it on there, plan on it being where you want it to be. So I'm just kind of going through and getting everything all completed. So that's my grounding wire there for the speakers. Now you don't have to do it the way I did in this case. You could run it straight to the center tap lug. It's probably wise to do it that way. I did not, but I don't think it's of any incident. So I don't know. I just didn't feel like trying to work out the wiring for that. So you can see here that I have the tape there again. Now this part proved to be kind of a pain in the butt. And you'll see I'm going to fiddle around with that power jack quite a bit there. Yay, did it. All right, so we're still moving on here. Now we're getting to the part here that I was talking about earlier, that I'm never going to do this shit again here. Where I run independent turrets for each of the wires that go out to the external components. It basically just turned this thing into a PCB. I mean, more or less, it's what it kind of did, because there's literally a jumper to every other wire that went off. And, you use twice as many turrets to do it, and you end up with all these freaking jumpers. This took for freaking ever. It's a pain in the ass to do all these little things. So no, I'm never doing that again. It just seems to be wasteful, and I don't see any value in burning up the resources like that. So, yeah, I'm not doing that again. Just FYI. But you're lucky I did it this time. So there. So here we are. We're just literally making all these jumpers, but freaking ton of them too. Yeah. So about each of these segments here is about 30 seconds long. And it works out that about every 10 seconds is an hour worth of time. Thereabouts anyway. But it does a pretty good job of like showing each and every single connection. So I don't know exactly how the iPhone does the little time-lapse thing. because it seems to get every single point that I touch. So it's really good at doing that at the very least, but it condenses everything, it seems, into about a 30-second segment. And every one of these segments here that I've done was about 3 hours on average, probably worth of time. 2 hours on the short end, 4 hours on the long end. And there's actually a little bit of prep work done on either side of this too. Cleaning this thing was the biggest pain in the butt though. Oh my God, cleaning that thing was less than fun. I'm not using that solder flux that I used this time ever again. Once that stuff got everywhere, it was impossible to remove. So here we are now. We're just straightening all the leads. Do please take your time and straighten all the leads. Just take a couple pieces of wood, rub them together, and then give me a call when you're done. Oh, wait, wrong form. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Yeah, so please straighten the leads. Oh, for the love of God, straighten your leads. It's just so much better. You may have seen in there a couple times I tried using like one of those resistor bend leaders. I'm never going to use that thing again. I tried it. It works, but it's just a pain in the butt to make the bends actually look really, really nice and actually get the part truly, centered. I find that using the pliers the way I have been in these last several frames here is just, honest to God, the best way to go. So just spend the time. You'll find that there's this magic point where the pliers lay over the top of the turret. And once you got this part centered where you want it, you just kind of grab the lead and then fold it over and off to the races. Every now and then you'll goof it up enough, but it's easy enough to fix. And it just looks, you can't beat the looks. So just saying, you can't beat the looks. All right, so I think here, yeah, we got one more here. So here we're just doing some more internal, connections. We got this screen grid resistors to put on. We got some jumpers. And then just kind of tightening things up a little bit. I'm going to go through and do some more work on the turret board here to solidify a couple things. There we go. So now we're going to get the input done here. I like to just fray the whole wire out. I don't like doing that thing where you pull it through the braided core or braided shield. I find it just better to unfray it, make it look pretty, and get it where you wanted. So, I don't know, that's just me, but there we go. Just kind of cruising along. Ta-da! All right, so this one here, I'm actually going to talk to you, so I'm going to drag the music down a little bit. I'm going to put it a little bit lower. This is actually going to be shot in real time, so you're just going to kind of see it. So just hang out, and I'll talk to you through this here as we walk through how to solder up this board here. Maybe not. I got to actually select the right thing. All right, so here we are. We're going to do this in real time here. So just a couple of prerequisites. First and foremost, you need to set your iron to a temperature that you know will work for what you got going on. I set my iron for 735-ish, right in there. It seems to work pretty well with the tip that I'm using, the machine I'm using, and the turrets and stuff like that. I like to clean the tip first, just to make sure it's nice and clean. And you can see it was pretty clean before to begin with. And then I like to wet the tip. Now, why do I like to wet the tip? If you wet the tip, it gives it just a little more mass, a little bit more, something that you can transfer heat to the thing. So, among other things. I'm going to try to do this as quick as I can. So I'm going to just kind of start over here a little bit. Yep, and of course, I piss it off, but, whatever. Add a little bit to it. And then I get it on there, hold it there for a second, and then I add some heat to it. And what we're trying to do is add solder to it until we start to see it kind of glom on. If it doesn't quite glob up all the way, then we know we need to add some more heat. There you go. That quick. And then what do we end up with? A nice shiny glob. And it looks like it's focusing somewhat good. But you end up with a nice shiny glob. But you can see it's really, really quick. You You don't want to go too hot. If you go too hot, you start getting like gray, and gray is no good. That means it's too hot. And if it's too cold, you'll end up with the thing on there too long, and it gets a little weird. I also like to move around a little bit, so we're not working on the same part too often. A clean tip is a good and happy tip, but
for more reasons than one.
You have to do it often enough. There you go. See how that worked? You yank the thing off, and it just goes bloop, and then it solidifies, and everybody's happy. So this part is not too bad. It's pretty hot, but so I like to bounce around a little bit. I don't want to beat up a single part too often. Obviously, cleaning your tip every now and then is probably not a bad idea, but just so you know, you want it to be somewhat clean.
Always clean.
We're just going to bounce around a little bit, and once you can kind of tell that there's stuff there, then you can just go like that. And you saw how, I don't know if you could see that, but I saw it. It just kind of flowed around and went where it was supposed to. So that I'm not super duper happy with. So I will add some more solder. Some of it flowed back down into the thing, which is fine, but it just means that we need to add just a little bit more to make it happy.
What I'm talking about is that the solder goes down into the hole.
So what you end up with is this shiny little blob.
So it'll suck down into the turret,
right? And everybody's happy. So I kind of jump around a little bit, like I mentioned, so I don't end up spending too much time just burning up one part.
Yeah, you already told us that, Luke. Shut the fuck up.
Wherever I need to be. And I kind of jumped the gun on that one. Like I said, I usually will add solder to the thing first, but it worked out okay for that one. So, and then just a little bit.
Do as I say, not as I do, is what I'm telling you.
And once you can tell that the solder is kind of flowing, then you can just kind of call it a day. So see, it doesn't quite want to stick to that ass end of the turret there, and it's just because there's not enough heat yet. So we got to get the heat there, and just a little more solder. There it is right there. And that is going to work out just dandy. So I will kind of bounce around, find a part that I like, and get it done that way. And you can kind of see I'm touching the part, but it's not soldering in. And it's because there's just not enough heat there yet. There's enough thermal mass to hold off the solder for a little bit, and then you'll just see it kind of flow. At some point, you'll just watch it kind of flow out. That's what you're looking for. Once you can see it kind of start to flow on the part, that's when it's time to just get your solder in there, just a little bit of it, and then, get it done. So that's all. Again, clean the tip semi-regularly. I only get one shot at this, so we want to make sure we do it right. So hold on.
So a big part of what I'm trying to get at here is that you got to get heat into the part, but you want to get it in there as fast as you can. And it's best to use the fat end of the soldering iron if you can. If you're using just the tip, you're not going to get as much heat. And then add a little bit of solder, and then you'll just kind of see it flow. It wasn't quite enough solder, and there it was. It just kind of did the thing. So yeah, again, use the fat end of the soldering iron, and that gets more heat into the part a little bit quicker. I think I ended up turning it up a little bit here. It was just, there's just too much thermal mass in some of these things, and it sucks all the heat away, especially if you're using just the tip of the iron. And you can't always get the whole fat end of the iron in there. And that's the other part of using a little bit of solder on the tip, is that it helps add some of that mass to the tip, and it helps transfer the heat a little bit more. So instead of relying directly on, tip to part contact, you got a little bit of tip, solder, and the part that will work in tandem. There it is. That did it. That was the money shot right there. All right. So on this one here, I think we can do this. I'm going to clean the tip again. And dang it, usually these things glue in, so it's, I don't know, it's being PETA right now, of course, because I'm trying to do stuff in real time here. And we're just waiting for it to glom on. The larger parts generally take a little bit more time. Yeah, see, it's just not quite ready yet. And you'll see it, it'll just kind of do its thing. There it goes. But we need a little bit more. See how that one's being kind of stubborn? It's not ready yet, and I got enough solder on there, but the heat is going to be a problem, and we don't want too much heat, so we're going to move on to another part, and we'll come back to that one. So what I'm getting at there is that the leads on that particular capacitor are large enough that it's soaking up a lot of the heat, and then it's being absorbed into the capacitor itself. So yeah, you can sit there and cook the part, but you don't want to do that for too long. Basically, if you're not getting where you need to go in quick enough time, just stop, come back, let the flux sit there on the part for a little bit to make it easier the next time you come around. This might be another part I'm going to have to come back to. We're going to find out right now. There it goes. That's not too bad. I usually end up having to go back anyway on most all of them and just kind of give them a touch up. Again, once the part gets hot, it starts getting weird. Yeah, that's kind of what I was mentioning. Yeah, and I do. I go back around and touch up everything again anyway, usually. So the big name of the game is getting it, in there and getting some solder on it at least at first. And then I'll come back and beautify it later if it needs it a little bit better. But once you know that the part's cooled down, then you can go back and just do that. And you see there, it just kind of did it a little bit nicer. And then it just does what it's supposed to do sometimes. So don't be afraid to just get a little bit on there, kind of get the stage set for it, and then come back to it. So you can kind of see how my finger's on the part. That also helps a little bit too on taking some of the heat out of it. Generally, if you let it sit there and cook like that for too long, the part will get too hot to even touch. If the part's too hot to even touch, you let it sit a little too long. Can't see from this angle how straight it is. There we go. That actually kind of worked pretty well. The hope is that it actually is somewhat straight, so let's go and check that. I'll be danged, it actually is kind of straight. And there is enough solder on it, so that will work. I will run with that. Yay. You know what? And on that note, time for a sippy. All right. Always. So again, I usually will end up coming back on always a drink of choice within arm's reach at all times. It just kind of depends. It's not like a hard, fast rule. It's just if it looks good, it is good. And that one went well. So that one we may not need to touch up again later. As you can tell, getting inside is going to be a little more challenging. So you try to get all the challenging stuff first. I find that helps quite a bit, to be honest. And I'm at a bad angle of the dangle on this one, so I can't really see it. But one of the... All right, this is going to be one of those things to see if you're paying attention. This will be a test right now, what we're about to do. So what should you always have in arm's reach? So do post in the comments. Each comment will get you an entry into the game of games, if you will. So do right now, post in the comments what you should always have within arm's reach. Moment. And then what I'm going to do now is try to come over to this one, these ones I should say, and get the other side tacked down. And just to clarify on a couple things too, you have 24 hours to do so. So by the time when I post this thing today, which will be today, the 27th, I'm going to post this thing here in another hour or two, hopefully. You'll have until about 8 o'clock or so tomorrow night to get your post in. I'm going to do, I think, 3 tests in this one. You've already heard one of them. Let's do the second test now. Well, I'm going to wait a few minutes. Again, we're just going to see how much attention you're actually paying. Sorry, I'm trying to walk and chew bubblegum here at the same time, and that's challenging sometimes. All right, so that one went okay as well. Got a little hot, but not too bad. That one may or may not need a touch up later on. We'll see. And then let's go ahead and get this one now. So just get it in there. Bloop. And bloop. There we go. I can live with that. That one will end up getting... All right, second test. So we're going to have 3 points possible in this game here. All right, so the next test is, what should you always do to your tip before you solder? Post it in the comments. Make it a separate comment, or if you want, you can put them all in the same comment. But again, you have until 8 o'clock tomorrow night, so the 28th, to get that answer in, your comment in. If you get all 3 of the tests correct, you'll get 3 entries into the game. Kind of suck itself in, but it left a nice, proper, like, glob for me. There it is. And these ones here I might come back to in a moment. Yeah, we're going to have to go back to those ones, but that's not... And I should also make a note too, that you have to let me know that you want to be in the game. So don't help other people out, because you want to win this amp. So every time you give the answer away, you're giving the answer away to someone else. So it might also behoove you to wait until 8 o'clock tomorrow night to make your post, or just before 8 o'clock tomorrow night. And that is my time. I am on the central coast of, California here. So I'm on, GMT -8 or something like that. So it is currently 5:22 p.m. right now on the 27th of June. And, well, basically, I'm going to post this thing, and it should be up by 8 o'clock. But I'm going to give you guys until 8 o'clock my time tomorrow. So just be noted that, you probably will want to do most of your posting tomorrow, but I'm going to do 3 of them. You've gotten 2 of the tests so far. There's 1 more coming. You not want to lay it on top of your nice expensive not transformer, but capacitor or whatnot. It's a $10 part underneath there. Well, maybe not quite $10, but it's not cheap. So you want to make sure that you do not lay your iron on top of it and ruin the look of it. Now, these ones here in the middle, you cannot fix once it's in there. So you kind of got to do any work that you're going to do at this point now. So we're just going to get it done. So bloop. And am I happy with that? I don't know. Now I'm happy with that. So you can kind of see it's shiny. It's the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to do the same. And just to reiterate, you have to let me know you want to be in the game. So if you're going to answer these questions, don't think that just telling me the answer is going to get you in. You got to say, I want to play as well. So I guess it's kind of 4 tests this time, but put in your post, I want to play, and then the answer to the question, or to the test, if you will. And you have till 8 o'clock tomorrow night to do that for this particular video here. I can tell you your odds are going to be pretty good. These videos don't usually collect a whole lot of views, so if you're paying attention to anything I'm doing, you got a leg up. So there's like this one little spot on there that's just not going to take. So we may have to come back to that one altogether. Yeah, it got too hot. So we're going to have to come back to that one. I'm not happy, so we'll bounce back around on that. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. And you can tell that I'm pretty picky about how this all comes together. So I tend to redo things multiple times. And if you wouldn't mind, there's all kinds of stuff just bounced underneath here. It's time. It's time, I tell you, to get a new little tray. There it is. There it is. All right, I'm happy with that now. So let's go ahead and get this one to look pretty now. There it is. That was it. That was it. That one's finally correct as well. For the most part, I got a little chingadero there. I don't know if you saw that. It sucked in. It just wasn't done taking solder. So there it is. Now it's done. That was actually what it was supposed to do. All right. Sometimes those turrets can get pretty thirsty, especially if they get a little too hot. I think by this point in time, I'd already turned up the heat, and if the turret gets hot, the heat will start to flow downward, and you'll put the solder in there, and it'll just suck right on in there. You got to keep in mind too, some of these have open bottoms on them, and well, none of them actually do. So sometimes the air pocket will that's left in there will push its way out, and it will cause the solder to flow downward, and basically try to fill the void. I'm gonna do a little bit more on. Ta-da! I'm gonna add a little bit more heat, so I'm gonna go up to 744.
There it is.
It seems like it's acting too cold at the. So let's talk a little bit about temperature. I don't know. I haven't calibrated mine. Mine's a Yihua like 939D plus or whatever, and it measures out in centigrade and Fahrenheit as well. I believe I have mine set at Fahrenheit. Almost positive I do, to be factual. Some people go for lower temperatures like 680, 700. I kind of feel like anything less than 700 is going to be too cold, especially when you're working with turrets. It's not so bad on like eyelet boards where there's less mass, and it's not so bad when just soldering like parts kind of just raw. But when you're working with turrets, you need a little more heat. And I kind of find that, for the most part, like when you're doing any kind of rework, like once you have the part on there and you've already got solder on it, right around 725 to 735, well, you usually can get away with it and it looks just fine. But when you're doing fresh builds, sometimes you need a little bit more, like 735 is usually where I'll start. And in this case here, I cranked it up to about 740. And, whether or not that's accurate is up for debate. So it might be that 740 is actually more like 725. But unless you calibrate, you don't really know. It really doesn't matter. You just kind of go with what seems right. If you're having to sit there with the iron on the part for very, very long, and it takes a while for the solder to start to flow, you just don't have enough heat. You need to get more because you want to spend less time with the heat on the part. And if you can't get it in there that quickly enough, then just do it in stages. Do not try to burn the part to get the solder to flow. But I'm not as happy with it as I would like to be. So I will come back to it. But I'm going to let it cool down for a second. Yeah, it's not too bad right now. I might be able to get away with that. Let's see here. There it is. All right, so we got that. Do I got any other old solder joints I need to touch up? No, nope. All right. Let's go ahead and get one of these more difficult ones here. This one on the ass end. I've kind of saved some of the harder stuff for last. These ones are kind of a pain in the butt because you got two components. So you're kind of trying to work around making it so you get the solder in there without moving them around too much. And that, of course, is not easy to do. But once you get one side, it kind of helps out a bit because then you can lock it in place for the other side to get done. I think that might have been good. I will double check on that. So, yeah, when we push it down a little bit, that will be great. And then once you get the second side in, that's close enough. I can live with that. These parts are just long enough, I guess I can come back and just get in there. So we'll just get this other side done as well. That one's going to require a touch-up for sure, I can already tell. But I want to wait for the parts to cool down just a little bit first. So now what we're going to do is start adding in some of our other components. So this one's going to go in now. And I'm just going to go ahead and get it out of the way and solder this end here. I think that one might work pretty well right there. One will hope. That one's probably going to require some touch-up later. And then we'll put in, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm using that chunk of wood underneath as well. It's just to insulate it from the my mat, if you will, which is, neoprene or whatever the heck you want to call it. So it's just to keep it from melting and ruining my mat too much. It also makes it kind of easier to rotate around, as well as kind of like a good insulator, from the heat, if you will. I don't know. Because the wires are on the back, the turret board is kind of isolated anyway, or elevated, so it allows air to kind of flow underneath a little bit, and it kind of helps a little bit in that regard to help insulate and keep from ruining things. Basically what I'm saying is I don't have any burn marks on my pieces of wood from, turrets literally cooking the wood. In 450 degrees, you'll start to get charring on wood. So that's a good sign if you're not, burning your wood chunk. And this is soaking up some heat. Those is pretty large leads, and it's soaking into the capacitor. So this is one of those things I was talking about. You want to get the heat good enough so you can get it onto the part, so you can get the heat out as quick as you can, because you don't want it to sit there and linger too long. And I need to do some tightening up on this one here, if I can. I don't really like that, but that is going to have to do. So we're going to just do this, and then we'll fix it on the other side. We'll even it out, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. Come on, there you go. All right, so now what we're going to do is come over to here, try to make it look right. That's not too bad. I can live with that. It looks a little off, and I know why now, but there's no way around it. There's no way around that. So now what we're going to do is take this guy and put it in here. Now this one doesn't have anything crazy going on with it, so this ought to be pretty simple. Straightforward, if you want to call it that. All right. Not very exciting. I'm fucking boring. This is fucking boring. Sorry. I don't know how to be interesting to do this. To be honest, there's like no way to be interesting. Like, it's literally trying to walk and, chew bubble gum at the same time, and it's not exactly like, I don't know, like I don't want to mess it up. I want it to look right. So I'm trying to concentrate and make sure I do a good job, and yet still talk to you at the same time. So, that's like, it's not easy to do. Everybody thinks doing this stuff is easy. Ooh, that came out really nice. I like that. If that can stay exactly where it's at, I'd be pretty stoked. Yeah, trying to be entertaining and actually doing a task at the same time is a lot more challenging than most people think. Just FYI. And on that note, the third test. I'm practically giving it away. Like you pretty much have a guaranteed entry if you follow the rules. The rules are simple. First, you got to say, I want to play, or I want to be in the game. And you got to answer the other two test questions. And you got to answer this third and final test question for this particular video. There will be more. But trying to build an amplifier live and in real time is challenging, and is like what? It is like trying to what? Question mark. Solder. Let's go. There it is. All right, let's go back around and just double check our work. That is pretty much where we're going to land at today. Actually, you know what? Just because I can, I'm going to do a soft tack on this one. I'm not going to put the full beans to it. I'm not 100% sure that this one's going in there, so I don't necessarily need it to be like super glued in there. So we're just going to kind of get it so it's tacked in there more than anything. So I'm not going to put enough solder to actually make it a permanent thing. It's an unknown at the moment, so this part is well, it's coming out anyway for sure. This is not going to be the permanent part that goes in there. If this is the value that we're going to use, I had 3 things to grab, and I grabbed the one that it wasn't. But we got one of these to put in there, and these are the high dollar ohmite ones. So I just don't know which value it is, and I don't want to take it out because I'm one of those types that once I put a part in, if it comes out, it goes in the bin. I do not reuse the parts. All right, so we got a couple more solder joints here to touch up, and then I think we can call it for this segment of it anyway. So let's get this going, plop, and then we're gonna do this one real quick. Ooh, that one went nice and smooth. Yeah, we got the heat just right now. Oh, man, that one's going to make me freaking work, man. I don't like it. Oh, you didn't see it. I did, but it sucked into the turret. So the challenge with doing turrets, of course, is that there is a hole in the turret. And the hole in the turret will, obviously absorb the part. So when it does that, or absorb the solder, excuse me, and when it absorbs the solder, it will, of course, no, it is the solder. Not so pretty. And I need to come back and redo this one as well, because that one did not complete. From A to zinc. Very well. So we'll add some more in there and we'll go bloop. And let's see here. Did I get everything now? So that one ended up a little bit gray. So now we're starting to get to the point where we almost have too much heat. Which is unfortunate because I was really hoping that one would look good. But it did not. So either I needed to clean the tip a little bit better, or I got too much heat in there and it caused it to get a little wonky. So we'll come back to that. Add a little more solder. Oh, there it goes. That's shiny like it's supposed to be. And then we're going to come back and touch a couple of these other ones up. And you'll know right away, like you can tell when you get it right, because it does. It gets like there's this shininess to it, this sheen. And when you don't get it right, it obviously just doesn't look good. And if it doesn't look good, then you've got a problem. And when you got a problem, you need to solve that problem. And the way you solve that problem is by redoing it. And once my once over here is looking pretty good. I'm happy with this. This is not a very bad job at the moment. This is a fact, children. You know how you've done it right? You've done it twice. And I can dunk the board upside down. So there you have it. So as you can see, we are complete now, and we are ready to put this thing in the turret, or excuse me, ready to put this in the chassis, excuse me, and then in the next segment, we'll actually go through and start connecting all the wires. So now you can kind of see why I did the wires the way I did. If you can imagine trying to get a wire on this guy in here, it would not be easy. It would not be fun. So trying to get wires in there on those are not easy. So I've moved them out to here to make it a little bit easier. I'm just going through, I'm just double checking my work to make sure everything looks right. As I mentioned, most of these things will end up getting touched up again anyway, in one way or another. So I'm happy with that. We are ready to stick that in the amplifier itself. So I'm going to turn off the iron. And I'm not going to cut the video yet. What I'm going to do is kind of clear my space, push those back. I'm going to bring the chassis over, and we'll just, hold on, I got to do a little bit of preparation first. Let me get the parts to actually screw this thing down. Oh my goodness, come on now. There it is. All right, my apologies. My apologies. I got the tool for that. Okay, I'll be right back.
All right, here we go. Put my ears back in so I can monitor myself while I'm talking to you. So yeah, this guy's gonna go like that. And then we're gonna take this. So I have not tightened these turret or standoffs yet on the other side. So this is gonna be one of those things where we're just doing it for looks at the moment. But we will. I do put like a little bit of blue thread locker in them once I actually get them locked in where I want them. So that's why I say we're going to kind of end it at this point right now, because there is a little bit more work to be done. So yeah, just so you know. But now you can actually see what this thing's going to kind of look like. Get in your home, please. Thank you. No? Am I missing something here? Hold on. Oh. It's probably... So that's why I didn't tighten them yet. So I need to obviously loosen that one from the other side. And then now that it's aligned properly on the top here, I can actually tighten these up. And then on the other side, I will loosen them and then re-tighten them. And then I will add the thread locker in order to ensure that they don't come undone or vibrate loose. But now that thing is very much a permanent part of this amplifier. Yes, very much so. I'm liking it. Okay, cool. All right, there you have it. So we're just one step closer here now to completing this thing. And you can kind of see what some of the goal was with doing what I did. These two guys here are going to go up to here. And then these two here are going to go up to this middle row. And then this third row here is going to go to that guy there. So everything's kind of, you know, really, really close. I mean, that's probably 1 inch to 1.5 inches of total length between here and there. It's not that far. And then I did this a little bit differently than I normally do. Generally, it comes off of these parts right here. So, you know, it's got 1.5 inches, 2 inches worth of length. Well, now with it being this way, it's literally within 1.5 inches. Same for down here. These are just going to literally just drop right down onto the pot. My gosh. Drop right down onto the tube socket. And all of these too as well just kind of line up really nicely with this, and they'll just plop down. But the height difference on them is about 1 inch. It's almost 1 inch from the top of this turret to the base of the, maybe not quite 1 inch. It's a solid 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch though. So this will come out straight, and then it'll drop down onto the base of the tube socket, right? And that will allow it to clear the heater wires that are underneath there. So we're just trying to get it to clear the heater wires.
God, if
I
I
have
could
a
get the
wire
words
that
out of
needs
my
to
mouth.
come over here from the rectifier up into this point here. And then I still have a wire that's going to come from this point or this point. I can pick either one of those two. It's probably going to end up coming from that point though, because I need to add a wire to that will go to the cathode of the tube. So there's a bunch of little wires still that got to go around. Obviously these two here, that was one of the only major bummers of this particular build, is that this one here, this wire is going to have to come up and then shoot down over to here. So it's a little bit longer of a length than I would like, but then this one is going to have to come out and around and down over into here. So, it is what it is. It's not ideal, but it will work. Now, objectively, I did it a little bit different, but I'm not as worried about it. These are the grid stoppers for the output tubes. Technically speaking, those should go straight to the tube socket, but this isn't a very high gain amp, and I'm not that worried about it. Now, if by some chance I end up with an issue where these guys here aren't doing the job, what I will do then is add another smaller value directly to the tube socket. Most of the time with 6v6s, people are using 1.5Ks. I don't think that's enough. It's generally enough to stop them from squealing, though. I went with 6.8Ks here, so I would probably use like a 2K at each of the sockets, which would get me closer to like 7, 8, 9, about 9K, 10K or something like that. And I have plenty of leeway. I'm only using 220K droppers there. So all those like little things you got to keep into mind. But, you know, I left myself a little bit of room there, knowing I wanted to shoot closer to 10K for the grid stoppers on these 6v6s. They prefer to have a slightly higher grid stopper value than most people put in there. Most manufacturers will put in 1.5K, and it's oftentimes not actually enough. Not that you'll notice the issues, but you know, that doesn't mean that there's not a problem or that a problem can occur. You can see here I have this wire ready to go for the input, and on the end of that one I will put a 10K. So those are sitting over there, kind of ready to go. And then I also have to wire up all this other stuff. So all that kind of stuff tomorrow we're going to do actually again in maybe we'll do it in real time. I might do stop motion on that because that part is going to be quite the time. So we'll probably do stop motion on that. And then we'll do another video that actually shows the biasing and playthrough, and not playthrough, but at least the biasing and, you know, double checking of everything on this thing to make sure that we're good to go. But I wanted to do this in real time to kind of talk you through how to do the soldering. I know that's the challenge for most people, is doing the soldering. So for me, obviously it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a problem, so I don't worry about it that much. But I might go back and fix one thing I'm still not happy about. These ones here are shooting off at kind of different angles, and although you can't really tell from the video, I'm not happy with it, so I might pull this guy up and then move this guy in and then reset that one on the other side so that it is more even. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not yet, but
spoiler
there
alert,
we have it. I want to thank you. So, you know, stay tuned. Obviously, we're just going to keep kind of rolling with this one. We're not going to turn this into a multi-parter, but we'll see some more probably time-lapse stuff of the actual like wiring. Yep, we are. We're sure going to see some more stop motion. So we're just going to keep the ball rolling, and here we go. So here we're just wiring everything up. I usually start from, I usually come in from one side or the other. I generally try to start with the B plus and then just kind of work my way down. But you can kind of just see how this thing is going to kind of lay out here. Nice short runs for the most part, shorter than most amps anyway. For the B plus run, I usually just running on its own thing. I don't like tying it in with other wires. I just try to keep everything that's a noise source or potential noise source separated from other things. Space is your friend with those types of things. So noisy sources need to stay away from each other. The heaters are a different thing. You can't get much around that. That is the noisiest thing in the amp. So, but yeah, we're just kind of cruising along here, getting through it. We're almost done here. We're getting the input. And then at the end, I'm going to go over everything with a heat gun, and you can kind of see it there for a brief moment. I had the heat gun out, and that's it. And what you're left with is this here. Ta-da! We are done. This thing is ready to go. And I actually did do some work. I did fix this part here like I was talking about. Maybe you can tell, maybe you can't, but this thing is now, you know, more perpendicular or, you know, parallel, I guess, if you will. Other than that, not much else was done. I didn't have to touch much up. I don't like how that is there. I kind of didn't. If it were like literally a 16th of an inch shorter, this would suck into the corner all the way. I might hot glue that down. I don't know. It's got enough tension. I'm not afraid of it falling down. It's not really a big deal even if it does. Technically, it's just going to get it further away from, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But yeah, this is it. And you can see I've also even changed my drink of choice since the last time I saw you. So I've literally found a way to condense pretty much 2 weeks worth of videos down into one and try to basically, you know, do it all in one video. It took a little bit of practice. The magic of OBS is finally starting to work for me a little bit.
and I was able to basically condense it all down into about 1 hour worth of videography here. So just to wrap things up a little bit, if you did not watch the whole video, you're going to have to watch it again, because if you do want to win this amp, and I am giving it away, I don't mind paying the shipping. I will pay the shipping. If you feel like you really, really have to pay the shipping because you want to, that's fine. I will accept that gesture from you if you wish. However, if you don't, I'm not going to ask you for it. But you have to want to win this amp. I'm not just going to give it to somebody that's just in it for S's and G's, all right? So you have to want to play the game. Currently, there's really only like 3 or 4 players. We've got Internet Money, who's got 3 points on the board already. We've got Andy Lederman, who's got a point on the board. We've got Amber, who's got a point on the board. She wants to play as well. It's pretty much counts as 2, really, for one person. But there's a couple others, and I will start to tally that up after I get through this here. But tonight, you have the possibility to add 3 more points to your score. You're going to have to watch the video and know that you're going to have to answer some questions. I would say it's best in your interest to hold off until late tomorrow. At 8 p.m. By 8 p.m. Tomorrow afternoon for me. It is 5:52 at the moment for me in California right now, and it's 6:27. So it's the 27th of June at the moment. So anybody that says I want to be in the game, you have to have a post that says or a comment that says I want to be in the game, and you have to answer the questions. If you answer all the questions, you get a point right for every comment you make that answers those questions. If you do it all in one post, that's fair enough too. But that's why I'm saying if you really want to win this thing, you're going to want to wait until later tomorrow afternoon. But make sure you watch the whole video, because they are, peppered in there. A couple of the test questions anyway. And for you cheaters out there, don't post the timestamps either. Anyway, I think we're going to call it with that. So in the next video, what we are going to do is go through the steps of actually firing this thing up. It is ready to fire up right now. But what you will want to do once you get to this point is double check all of your connections. So go through with your ground points and make sure everything that's meant to be a ground is a ground. Another thing that you can do is actually test your volume pots. If you turn them all the way down and you touch the middle lug, it should beep to ground. And as soon as you lift it off of 0, it should not beep anymore, not be grounded, right? That's how you know that your volume pots are working. Tone controls, well, you're going to have to wait until you turn the amp on to know, but if you did everything right, you shouldn't have any problems. But you just want to go through and beep everything. So point to point, beep it from there to that connection there, because that's an underboard connection, and know that that is right. And then beep it from here to where it connects down there on pin 1, etc., etc. All the way around, you want to go through and make sure that everything that is supposed to touch the next part touches the next part. So like what I can tell you now is that this dropping resistor here, there's a wire that goes all the way over to here and down into this thing there, right? Well, that means that there's a jumper wire between this point here and that point there. And we want to make sure that those beep between these 2 points, and we want to make sure that this beeps between this point over here, or even there, if you will. And, same here. You want it to make sure it beeps there. You want to make sure that these beep together, etc., etc. Anything where there's supposed to be a connection that touches another thing, you want to make sure that it beeps. Now, when it comes to the resistors, that's a little more of a challenge because they don't beep. So you're just going to kind of have to trust that you did all your stuff right. But double check all your, physical connections. That's the big thing. Aside from that, there's really not much else you can do at this point. I have not wired in the LED stuff yet. This is the wiring here to power the LEDs, but I haven't actually gotten the driver wired up to power the LEDs yet. We're going to do that later. And then once you've done all that, then you're ready to actually do the startup process of this amp, which we will go through in the next video segment. And with that, I bid you all adieu. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Take care. Goodbye.